Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. It's a pleasure to be back. And we are holding today in Mishnah Berurah, Chelik Hey. We're on Pei Dalet Amud Aleph. We're continuing to learn Hilchos Pesach. We're in the midst of Siman Taf Ayin Gimel, a very fascinating Siman, where we're discussing the various laws of the Seder. And we're holding in the middle of Seif Hey. Yes, in the middle of Seif Hey. We're picking up on the top line of the Shulchan Aruch in Pei Dalet Amud Aleph with the words of the Ramah. Now, we have been speaking about maror, and yesterday the Shulchan Aruch gave us the list of different vegetables that could be used to fulfill the mitzvah of maror. Now says the Ramah, Hagah, if you do not have one of these vegetables available to you to use as maror, says the Ramah, Yikach lana. You should take lana, which is some kind of a bitter herb or bitter. I won't call it a vegetable. It's more, from what I understand, like a leaf. My understanding is that lana is wormwood. Interestingly enough, lana is used in many psukim as an example for something bitter and something that represents punishment, represents piranhas. Lana, if it is common wormwood, also is somewhat toxic. So definitely it seems to be a min of piranhas. I'm not saying that it's not edible. It seems that it does have to be edible. And there's a very fascinating bir halacha over here that goes through the question of lana and how edible it is, etc. But common wormwood does have a certain level of toxicity to it. But be that as it may, the Ramah says if you do not have one of these vegetables, take lana, oy sha'ar yerek mar, or some other bitter vegetable. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Ice cut mem dalet. The Mishnah Berurah says echad me elu hayarakos. Ritzayna loymar. What the Ramah wants to say here is chamisha hanal. If you do not have one of the 5 vegetables that we mentioned yesterday, so then what are you going to do? Ice cut mem hey yikach lana. You should take lana, ayin bir halacha. Like I say, there's a fascinating bir halacha over here that discusses what exactly lana is. Is lana a vegetable that is one of the vegetables mentioned in Shas that could be used as maror, or is it not one of the minim of maror at all, and now you're just taking something which is bitter? So there's an interesting bir halacha over here. Ois cut memvav, ois sha'ar yarek mar, or if not lana, you can take some other bitter vegetable. Hainu oisam sheyesh lahem simanim hamuzkarim bashas le'inyan maror. The Chavetz Chaim says that when the Ramah tells you should take another bitter vegetable, another yerek mar, the Chavetz Chaim says what the Ramah means is some kind of vegetable that exhibits some of the simanim, some of the signs, the indicators that that vegetable is worthy of being used as maror. The Gemara in Pesachim gives us indicators that a vegetable is something that is roi for maror. Sheyir roi la'achila. It has to be something that can be eaten, that is edible. V'sheyesh lo sraf. It has to have some kind of a sap. Pirush kishechoitchen oisai, so that when you cut it, yotzei b'mkaim chituchai mayhal lavan kicholav. When the Chavetz Chaim says that it has to have a sap, what he means is that when you cut it at the place where you make the incision, it exudes some type of a moisture, some type of a liquid that is somewhat whitish. Upanav machsifin, and the surface of this vegetable should be something which is pale. Tahainu sha'ala shalai ena yarek ma'id. It's something where the leaves are not very green. They're not a deep green. Ka'ale habitzalim, for example, like the leaves of the onion plant. Usha'are yarakos, or the leaves of other vegetables, which tend to be a deep green. Ella rather noitek sas laloiven. The color of this vegetable, the color of these leaves, should be something which is pale, which approaches white. When we come up, nevertheless, still in all, if you do find one of these vegetables, even though it has some of the simanim of maror, you cannot make a bracha of alachilas maror on these minim, because we are not familiar enough with these simanim to know which vegetables exactly are usable as maror and which ones are not, and therefore if we're using one of these other kind of vegetables, we do not make the bracha of alachilas maror. In the Dirshu footnote 59 over here, They write, Im ein benimtza klal me'elo haminim hakisherim. Let's say you don't have any of these minim either. So you don't have any of the 5 species mentioned by the Shulchan Aruch for maror, and you also cannot find any yerek that seems to exhibit any of these simanim of maror. What should you do then? So he brings down here, Kasav Shulchan Aruch Harav. The Shulchan Aruch Harav writes, Shalazecher ba'alma, that just as a remembrance to the idea of maror, you should eat any vegetable that has a somewhat bitter taste. However, you should not make an alachilas maror on that vegetable. You shouldn't make the bracha. Nor do you have to be careful to eat a minimum shear of that vegetable, because you're not being yotze in the mitzvah. You're only doing it as a zecher. You're only eating it as a zecher. Now we continue in the Ramah. So now we've covered maror. Of course, when we eat the maror, we dip it in charoises. Says the Ramah, the charoises yasa of, you should prepare the charoises in a manner where it is thick. Zecher letit, as a remembrance to the cement that we used when we were building Pisam and Ramses for Paroi. So we have the cement was the symbol of our shibud, of our enslavement. So we make the charoises, it should be something reminiscent of cement. It should be a thick mixture. However, va'achar, after we prepare it, before we're ready to dip the maror into it, noistin by ma'at chometz or yayin odaim, we pour into it some wine vinegar or some red wine, zecher ladam, as a remembrance, as a zecher to the dam. Now, which dam are we talking about here? We're not talking about the dam of Makas dam. We're talking about the dam of the Yiddish kinder, the dam of the children that were killed by Paroi, the Yiddish kinderlach that were thrown into the Ya'ar, the Yiddish kinderlach that were installed and built into the buildings, into the walls. It says that when they didn't have enough bricks, they made them take babies and put babies into the brickwork. So it's a zecher to that dam. And we prepare the charoises miperos from various fruits shenimshulu behem Yisrael, where we find that Klal Yisrael is compared to those fruits. Kigoyin, for example, tapuchim, apples, te'enim, figs, egoizim, walnuts, rimonim, pomegranates, shkedim, almonds. The noisted of tivolin, and we also add spices to the mix. Kigoyin, kinamoin, for example, cinnamon, vizangvil, or ginger. Hadoimim l'teven. Specifically, we try to use spices that they bear a similarity to straw. Shayu megablin by hatit. When they would mix the cement, they would take straw, and they would mix straw into the tit as a binder. That's what they would mix into the cement as a binding agent. These spices like cinnamon and ginger, even though you can take cinnamon and you could grind it into a fine powder, like we use ground cinnamon, but cinnamon, of course, is a stick. Cinnamon sticks. Ginger is also long pieces. And if you don't grind it very fine, you come up, if you just chop it up, you have lengthy, thin little pieces. So it bears some similarity to straw. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Cotton Mem Zayin. Ya'aseh of, the Ramah said that we should mix the charoises in a manner so that it should be thick. V'ya'asehu me'erev Yom Tov. The Chavetz Chaim tells us that the charoises has to be prepared on Erev Yom Tov, preferably. You should not prepare it on Yom Tov. I believe the reason for this is that in order to prepare the charoises, we have to do teichen. We have to do the malacha of grinding. And if possible, even though teichen is mutter on Yom Tov for Eichel Nefesh, especially if it's something that you're going to use miyad, if it's right before the Suda, I guess over here you're not really doing it miyad because you need the charoises already on the ka'ara, and it's going to be quite a while before you use it. So preferably, he says, you should prepare it on Erev Yom Tov. Also, if it's something which is possible to do on Erev Yom Tov, there's no reason to leave the malacha for Yom Tov. Malachas that you're going to do for Eichel Nefesh, certainly if there's a preferential reason to do it on Yom Tov, the food will be fresher, it'll taste better. Certainly if it's something that's going to spoil, for instance, you can't make mashed potatoes on Erev Yom Tov. You want to have mashed potatoes, you got to make your mashed potatoes by the meal. So you're going to do that on Yom Tov. But when you're talking about things that can very easily and just as well be done on Erev Yom Tov, so you do them a Erev Yom Tov. So the Chavetz Chaim says preferably Yaseyim a Erev Yom Tov, prepare the charoises on Erev Yom Tov. However, if you forgot to grind up your charoises on Erev Yom Tov, mutar la'asoisai bi Yom Tov, it is mutar to prepare it on Yom Tov. Ois kat memches, the Ramah told us that we add into the charoises ma'at chometz shel yayin, some vinegar, and the Chavetz Chaim points out we're talking about wine vinegar, or yayin adaim, or red wine, kedei l'rakeh choisai, to soften up the mixture of the charoises so that we could dip the maror in. If you have a very thick, pasty mix, you can't really dip the maror. It's not a tibul. Then the charoises is not really a dip. It's not the right consistency for a dip. So you make it nice and thick so it should be a zecher to the tip. However, afterwards you pour in the wine vinegar or the wine to soften it up and give it the proper texture. And we use something which is red so that there should be a remembrance for the dam. Im chal b'Shabbos, let's say the Seder night falls out on Friday night, yiten by a mashke me'erev Shabbos. Then the Chavetz Chaim tells us that we should really add the liquid, the red wine or the wine vinegar, to the charoises on Erev Shabbos. Again, the reason over here is because to pour liquid into a thick, pasty-like mixture like charoises, that would be a problem. It's possibly a problem of lush. There would be a chash of lush, of kneading, which is one of the lavates malachas. You're not allowed to do lush on Shabbos. So we don't want you to pour the wine or the wine vinegar into the charoises on Shabbos. However, if you forgot, ayin le'el b'simin shin chaf aleph sif yud vav u'b'mishnah Berurah sham sif katan samaches. And in the Dirshu footnote over here, let's see which footnote that was. I think there was a footnote there. Yes, in footnote 61, where you see that the Mishnah Berurah sends you back to Siman. Where did he send us here? He sent us to Shin Chaf Aleph in Hilchos Shabbos. So in the footnote here, he brings down Sham Kasav Shaladas Ramah, according to the opinion of the Ramah. Also, Lase says Hamashkel Usaycha Charoises Elim Kena Charoises Blilosai Raka. If you forgot to add the liquid that you're going to add into the charoises before Shabbos, now you could only add it to the charoises if the charoises is already a blilosai raka, if it's already somewhat of a loose, pourable mix. Va'af yeshane ba'ofen hanasina, and the Ramah also says that you should make a shinoi when you mix the liquid in. Instead of pouring the liquid into the charoises, you should pour the charoises into the liquid. The arev be'etzbai, and you should mix it with your finger as opposed to mixing it with the utensil. Okay, let's go weiter. We go to Ois Kat Mem Tes. The Ramah said that we're supposed to mix into the charoises various fruits, and these are fruits that Klal Yisrael is compared to. Kegoin tapuchin, for example, apples. Now the Chavetz Chaim brings down a pasuk from Shir Hashirim. Al Shem HaKosav, this is because of the pasuk that writes, Tachas HaTapuach Articha. The Rabbeinu Shalom says of Klal Yisrael, under the apple tree I aroused you. And I believe that this is a reference to the Chazal that tell us that the Yiddish mothers, during the time of the Shibud, they would go ahead, they would conceive children, and they would go outside of the city, out to the field, and they would give birth under the apple trees. And the Medrash discusses various nisim that the Rabbeinu Shalom made, where the children were able to get their food and their drink all through nisim. So this is a remembrance to some of the nisim of Mitzrayim. Tachas hatapuach articha. V'chein she'arei peros kulam kesuvim b'shir hashirim. These other fruits as well all have various psukim in Shir Hashirim that allude to their comparison to Klal Yisrael. Ushikedim, as far as shkedim, almonds, which are not mentioned in Shir Hashirim, al shem sheshakad HaKadosh Baruch Hu ala kates lasais. That's because the Rabbeinu Shalom is a shakdan. The Rabbeinu Shalom has great shkida. The Rabbeinu Shalom is very diligent in chasing down the kates. You know, you kind of get the feeling sometimes, you say to yourself, Ani mamin be'emunah shalema, We say, if the Rebbeinu Shalom wants it, so let the Rebbeinu Shalom do it already. It's not that the Rebbeinu Shalom only wants it. You should know the Rebbeinu Shalom is shakad ala kates laslis. The Rebbeinu Shalom is eager and very diligent, and he's very assiduous in his pursuit of the kates. He wants to send Eliyahu Navi. He wants to send Mashiach. We're the ones that have the lack somehow of urgency. It's like I can't resist. I always say, we make asifas and we make beautiful siyumim in MetLife Stadium. And when we had the challenge of technology, we had a big asifa, what to do about iPhones and the internet. We get 90,000 people together in MetLife Stadium. But where's the urgency? Rabbi Sai, Mashiach hasn't come yet. What are we going to do? We should make an asifa. There's a tremendous crisis. The huge crisis that's facing Klal Yisrael. You know what it is? It's that we already had Nisan and Mashiach still isn't here. We're in the middle of Sfira. We're coming up to Shavuos, Kabbalah Satar, and Mashiach still isn't here. There has to be an urgency. We have to be shakdanim that we want Mashiach to come. The Rebbeinu Shalom is a shakdan. We eat shkedim. We put shkedim in the charoisis because the Rebbeinu Shalom is shakad ala kates laslis. Ice cotton nun. We mix into the charoisis spices like cinnamon and ginger. Hadoimin la teven, that bear a similarity to straw. She'ein nidoichen heitev. They do not, generally speaking, become ground very well. Our ground cinnamon, that's so pulverized into a fine powder, that's using commercial equipment to do that. Probably the standard issue household equipment that was available to grind spices in those days, the cinnamon didn't get ground, I guess, very well. They do not ground very fine. And in their raw state, they're long, so they bear a similarity to straw. Now we turn to Sivav. Okay, so we've reached the point in the Seder where we prepared. We have the Marar already. We spoke about the Kaisais. Now we spoke about the Marar. Now says the Shulchan Aruch, says the Mechaber in Sivav, Noitel Yadav L'tzarech Tibul Rishon. After Kiddush, you wash your hands for the first dipping. That's the dipping of the karpas in the mei melach, in the salt water, or in the chametz, in the vinegar, or in the brine. The first dipping that we do at the Seder, you have to wash your hands first. Rachza. V'lo yavarech al hanatila. We do not make a bracha. We don't make a netilas yadayim on that netila. So like the children say at the Seder, kadesh urchatz, you ask the child, what's urchatz? We wash our hands because we're going to dip the vegetable in the salt water, and we don't make a bracha on the netila. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cotton nun aleph. L'tzarech tibul rishon. We're washing our hands in preparation of the first dipping. K'may shemefaresh v'haylech, as the Mechaber is going to go on to describe. V'hatam, and the reason for this is, why do we wash our hands? The chol davar shetibulai b'mashke, because whenever we dip something into a liquid to eat it, tzarech netila, we have to wash our hands. And the Chavetz Chaim writes, like we have discussed previously in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, in Siman Kuf Nun Ches. What's at play over here? What is this netila all about? So we're all very familiar with netilas yadayim on bread. Why do we wash netilas yadayim? The truth is that it is involved, there's a machlokes rishonim over the washing, but simply put, the din of yadayim, a person's hands, stam yadayim shniyos, stam yadayim, a person's hands, if they're not washed, they have a din of a sheni l'tumah. They're a secondary tumah. And if you go ahead and you touch a mashke, if you touch a beverage with your hands, the hands become a rishon. In the parlance of the Gemara, anything that passes truma, anything that is capable of bringing a level of tumah to truma, so that the truma would be considered tameh, makes a mashka, makes a beverage a rishon. Now, stam yadayim are shniyos, stam yadayim are a sheni l'tumah. So a sheni l'tumah could make a shlishi by truma. There's no such thing as a shlishi l'tumah by chulin, but there is a shlishi l'tumah by truma. So your yadayim, which have the din of a sheni, if you touch a mashke, it's going to make the mashke a rishon. Since your hands that are a sheni could make truma a shlishi, therefore your hands that are a sheni, if they touch a beverage, they make the beverage a rishon. So you're going to sit down by the Suda, and now you're taking, let's say, you're taking a piece of potato and you're dipping it in a mashke, you're dipping it in mei melach. Your hands that are a sheni could make that mei melach a rishon, and now the rishon could go ahead and it could be metame the other food, and it could bring tumah to you as well. And we don't want that. So it's whether it's because of srach truma, we wash before we eat bread because we have a fear. We always want to go out of our way to protect truma, to make sure that tumah never comes to truma. So the chachamim are masakin, before you sit down to eat a suda, especially before you eat bread, which generally speaking, you could have truma daraisa made from bread, because truma daraisa grain there's a din of truma daraisa by grain. So bread, very often you would have bread of truma. We want to make sure that everybody washes their hands before they eat bread. So nobody should come to eat bread of truma before they wash their hands and possibly bring tumah to truma. So this din also applies to something that you dip into a beverage. Now, most people are not noyig nowadays that they wash their hands before they dip something into a beverage. There are various reasons why not, discussed in the Rishonim. But in any case, by the Seder, we are makbid on this. Whether one of the reasons we're makbid is because Kadesh Yishalu Atinoikais, we want the children to ask questions. The Magen Avram says that from here you see that really we should be nizar in this all year round. Really, we should be washing before we dip in a liquid all year round, because otherwise, why are we doing it by the Seder night? But there are various reasons given why we're not makbid on it by things that you dip into a beverage, while we are makbid on it by bread. But in any case, that's what the Mechaber said. The Mechaber said we wash our hands in preparation of the dipping. Ice cotton and bays, however, you do not make a bracha on this dipping. When the Mechaber paskins that you do not make a bracha whenever you wash on something that you dip in a beverage. The Gra held that you actually do make a bracha. Okay, now we continue in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says, in my Mishnah Berurah, it's on the bottom line in the Shulchan Aruch. So you washed, you did rachza, and now it's time for karpas. V'yikach me'a karpas. Now you take from the vegetable that you're eating as the karpas, pachos mikazayis. You take an amount that's less than a kazayis. Umetabloi b'chaimitz, and you dip it into vinegar or into mei melach. Umevarech bari pri ha'adama. You make a bracha bari pri ha'adama. Va'oichel, and you eat the dipped karpas. Ve'enoi mevarech acharov, and you do not make a bracha achroina on the karpas. Okay, that's a mouthful. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Ice cotton nun gimel. Pachas mikazayis. The Shulchan Aruch just told us that when you eat the karpas, you should take a piece that's less than the size of a kazayis. Why is that? Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Lefisha bekazayis, because if you're going to eat a kazayis, yesh safik bebracha achroina, you're going to wind up in a safik. You're going to wind up having a doubt whether or not you should make a bracha achroina. Should you make a bar nefashos or not? If you eat a kazayis of potato, normally you have to make a bar nefashos afterwards. So if you eat a kazayis of your karpas, you're going to look at it, you're going to say, maybe I have to make a bracha achroina because I added kazayis. On the other hand, we're going to explain there's also a strong reason why you should not make a bracha achroina. So now you're going to have a suffix. If you eat a kazayis, you're going to wind up with a suffix by the bracha achroina and yavarach im lai, if you should make a bracha achroina or not. Therefore, it is better that you should eat less than a kazayis, so that there should not be any obligation to make a bar nefashos because you did not eat a shear that requires a bracha achroina. Now, what's the suffix over here? Why is there a suffix here, whether or not you're going to have to make a bracha achroina? So the truth is that this is tied up in a machlokes rishonim in Psachim. You have a Rashbam and you have a Tosfos. The Rashbam says that when you make the bari pri ha'adama on the karpas, we know that bari pri ha'adama is a bracha that covers whatever vegetable you're going to use for karpas, and it also is capable of covering whatever bracha you're going to eat, whatever vegetable you're going to eat for the maror. And therefore, the Rashbam says that when you make the Borei Pri Ha'adama on the karpas, you actually should have in mind to cover the maror as well. We want that when you make a Borei Pri Ha'adama on your karpas, that bracha rishona should also cover the maror that you're going to eat later. Why? Because maybe the washing that you do, you're going to wash when you eat matzah, maybe the washing and the bracha of hamitzi on the matzah does not cover the maror. Maybe the maror does not constitute something which is ba machmas hasuda. Maybe it's not considered a su'uda food. It's not really considered an integral part of the meal, and therefore its bracha rishona was not covered by the hamitzi. So how do you get a bracha rishona on the maror? The way you do it is you make a hadama on the karpas, and the hadama that you make on the karpas is going to cover the maror as well. Now, if that's true, then when you make the hadama on your karpas, you're starting a snack of vegetable. The first bite of your vegetable snack is the karpas, and then you're going to continue your vegetable snack later on when you eat the maror. And what's your bracha achrona going to be on this vegetable snack? Birkas hamazon. That's going to be your bracha achrona. Now, if you eat, according to the Rashbam, if you eat a kazayas of maror now, and now you go ahead and you make a bracha achrona on, if you eat a kazayas of karpas now, and now you make a bracha achrona on it, well then the bracha rishona can't cover the maror. You made a hadama on the karpas, you ate a kazayas, you made a bracha achrona, that's over. So now you would have to make a bracha rishona later on the maror. So according to the Rashbam, this doesn't work. So according to the Rashbam, if we want to cover one bracha, if we want to make one bracha rishona on the karpas and on the maror, so you have to make a bracha rishona now and not make a bracha achrona. And your bracha achrona is going to be benching. Now, according to the Rashbam, maybe you could do that. Maybe eat a kazayas of karpas now and just don't make a bracha achrona. And fine, you'll bench later. But the problem is that this doesn't work according to Tosfos. Tosfos is not happy with the Rashbam. The reason Tosfos isn't happy with the Rashbam, Tosfos has two problems with the Rashbam. One problem is he says, how could you make a hadama now on the karpas and say that hadama is also going to cover the maror? What are you doing between now and the maror? You're spending an awful lot of time and you're reading through the whole Haggadah. Says Tosfos, that's clearly a hefsek. Clearly you're being mafsik between your eating of the karpas now and your eating of the maror later. So how could you tell me that your Borei Pri Ha'adama now on the karpas covers the maror later? So according to Tosfos, Tosfos is very unhappy with this. So according to Tosfos, if you would make a bracha rishona now and you would eat a kazayas, and now you want to go ahead and continue that eating later with the maror and be yoitz of the bracha achrona with benching later, that doesn't work. So if you're going to eat kazayas now, according to Tosfos, you have to make a bracha achrona now. But if you make a bracha achrona now, then you have a problem with the bracha rishona on the maror according to the Rashbam. So we want to try to walk a tightrope between Tosfos and the Rashbam. So what we do is we say make a Borei Pri Ha'adama now on the karpas, have in mind to cover the maror as well, eat less than a kazayas, so right now you don't have a chiyuv of a bracha achrona, and then later on you'll eat the maror. The bracha rishona on the maror will either be covered by the hamitzi of the suda according to Tosfos, or by the hadama on the karpas according to the Rashbam, and it'll be covered. The benching will cover the karpas as well, both according to Tosfos, there won't be a problem because you ate less than the kazayas. According to the Rashbam, it would be covered anyway by benching. So that's a little bit complex, but that's more or less the gist of it. Okay. We go now to Ice Cut and Nun Dalet. Said the Shulchan Mechaber told us that you're going to dip the karpas b'chaimetz. You're going to dip it in vinegar. Says the Chavetz Chaim, doesn't have to be vinegar. Oy b'yayin, or in wine, oy b'mei melach, or what we're familiar with in salt water. V'loyasi, and this that the Mechaber wrote that you're going to dip it in chaimetz, he didn't write that not because he wanted vinegar, only to tell you that he does not want you to dip it in the other dip that we have by the Seder. Don't dip it in charoisis. Ki charoisis eina elo l'tibul sheni, because the charoisis is specifically prepared for the second dipping of the maror. Shemetabel maror b'charoisis. So don't use the charoisis now by karpas. But you don't have to use vinegar now. You could use vinegar. You could use what we generally use, salt water. And ice cotton and hay. The Shulchan Aruch said, "Mavarich b'rei priya adama." You should make a b'rei priya adama. And now the Chavetz Chaim says, "V'yichavein." And when you make that b'rei priya adama, you should have intent. Liftar b'bracha zu gam amar sheyochel achakach. You should have intent that bracha of ha'adama is also going to cover the vegetable that you're going to eat for the maror. Ice cotton nun vav ve'ena mavarich acharav. And you don't make a bracha achrayna on the karpas. Says the Chavetz Chaim. Afilu imachal kezayis. Even if you do eat a kezayis by the karpas, still do not make a bracha achrayna. Lefisha bracha rishayna kai gamal amar v'chanal. Because we don't want you to make a bracha achrayna, because we want the b'rei pri ha'adama that you made on the karpas to cover the maror. And if you make a bracha achrayna on the karpas, then the bracha rishayna is over with. It can no longer cover the maror. V'alkein berkas hamazon shepaiter samar she'eichel b'sach hasuda kai gamal karpas. And the Birkas Hamazon, when you bench, and that will pater the bracha achrayna of the maror and the karpas she'achal mikayim. Vayim b'bir halacha masha kesavnu b'shem hagra bazeh. Okay, now we continue the Shulchan Aruch. We continue the Mechaber on the top line of Pei Daled Amud Beis. After we have finished with karpas, we go to yachatz. What do we do by yachatz? The yikach matzah he'emtzoyes. We take the middle matzah. We're going according to the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch that we have 3 matzahs. So take the middle matzah, v'yivtza'eno l'shtayim, and we break it into 2. V'yitein chetzya, you take half of it, and you give it le'echad mehamesubin, to one of the other people by the table, l'shamra, to watch it, la'afikaimen, for use by the afikaimen, v'nois tachas hamapa, and put it under some kind of a towel, some kind of a cloth. The chetzia hasheni, and the other half of the matzah that you just broke, yasim bein shtei hashleimos, you leave between the 2 other whole matzahs, between the kayin and the Yisrael. So you're breaking the Levi, and you're leaving the Levi, the broken piece of it, you're leaving between the Kayin and the Yisrael. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut nun vav. I'm sorry, we did that already. Nice cut nun zayin. Ha'emtzoyes, you take the middle matzah, v'yivtza'eno l'shtayim, and you break it into 2. Why are you doing this, says the Chavetz Chaim? Kedei l'kayim, in order to fulfill ma shekara'ah hakasav, this that the pasuk says of the matzah, the primary matzah over which we say the Haggadah is called by the Torah Hagdosha lechem oni, a poor man's bread. V'darkoi shel ani beprusa, and an ani, a pauper, doesn't have a whole loaf. He has a broken loaf. So that matzah over which we're going to say the Haggadah has to be a lechem oni. It has to be a prusa. It has to be a broken piece, and that's why we break that middle matzah. V'amar ha'emtzoyes. And the Chavetz Chaim explains, why does the Mechaber tell me to break the middle matzah? Ki birkas achilas matzah ha'ikar ala koi. Because later on, when we're going to make the bracha of Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvahs of Itzivanu al achilas matzah, when we're going to make the bracha that we want to fulfill the mitzvah of achilas matzah, says the Chavetz Chaim here, that be'ikar, that bracha goes on the broken piece on the middle matzah. Uberkas hamoitzi, and the hamoitzi that we make, shemavarich mitchila, kai al yoina hamunachas lefanav, that goes on the top one that you see in front of you. So therefore, the primary matzah, as far as the mitzvah of matzah is concerned, is the middle matzah. So that's the one that we break. And we place half of it in between the other 2 matzahs, so that the 2 eatings of matzah that we do to fulfill the mitzvah of achilas matzah should both come from the broken piece. We have the broken piece that remains between the other 2 whole matzahs that we're going to use for the mitzvah of achilas matzah, and we have the other half that we put away that we're going to use to be yotze in the mitzvah of achilas matzah by the afikomen. The one that we're putting away, that should be the bigger one. Ice cut nun test. Takas hamapa, the one that we put away for the afikomen, we should put under a cloth. Why? Zecher, as a remembrance, lamasha omer, for that which the pasuk says when the pasuk describes the matzah that we ate when we left Mitzrayim. The pasuk says misharoi sam, their leftover matzah. Remember, they prepared matzah to eat together with the carbon pesach. That's why they had dough. So they made dough to have, well, according to Rav Moshe at least, there's two different matzahs. There's the matzah that was left over from the matzahs that they made to eat with the carbon pesach. So they had leftover baked matzahs. Misharoi sam, they had the leftovers of the matzah shel mitzvah that they wrapped in cloths. Tzrurais wrapped up bisimloisam in their clothing. And then there was the matzah when they prepared dough to take out with them and didn't have a chance to rise. That became matzah. There are those that have the minhag to take the afikomen wrapped up in a cloth and put it over their shoulder, zecher liyitzias Mitzrayim, as a remembrance of going out. So they took their belongings and threw them over their shoulders. The yiyun is harin, and we should take care that you should wrap up the afikomen in a cloth that was not wrapped. I think this is some kind of a starch. So don't use a cloth that was wrapped up with that was made with a comic stick of starch. Ka'akarim, if we're talking about some kind of bed sheets, mistama mechubasin b'krachmel. Now we go further in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch tells us, by me it's the last word on the second line. After you did yachatz, now you're ready to start magid. V'yagbia ka'ara. The Shulchan Aruch says you should lift up the ka'ara sheyesh ba matzos, that has the matzos on it. Remember that we said that the matzos, the Ramah said that the matzos are on the ka'ara. So lift up the ka'ara that has the matzos on it. V'yomer halachma anya, and you should say halachma anya. Ice cotton samach in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says v'yagbia ka'ara. You should lift up the ka'ara im kal ma she'aleha. We're lifting up the ka'ara, so we're not only lifting up the matzos, but we're lifting the ka'ara with everything else that's on it, with the maror and with the charaisis and with the zraya and with the beitza and the matzos. Don't think that you have to remove everything else from the ka'ara and only lift up the matzos. No, you could lift up the whole ka'ara with everything on it with the matzos. And my impression is that the Chavetz Chaim is telling you, it doesn't mean that bedafka you should lift up the ka'ara with everything on it. It would be enough to just lift up the matzos. But if your matzos are on the ka'ara and you want to lift up the whole ka'ara, that's not a problem. You could do that. Ice cotton samach aleph, you should say ha lachma anya. The yesh omrim keha. There are some that have the girsa with a kuf. Keha lachma anya. V'tzarich la'imrei b'ka'aram. And the Chavetz Chaim says that you should say this in a loud voice. You should say it loudly. Ha lachma anya. It's an announcement. Continues the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch said, we lift up the ka'ara sheyesh ba'amatzos v'yomer halachma anya, and we say halachma anya ad ma nishtana, until ma nishtana. Haggah says the Ramah, v'yomar b'lashon shemevinim anoshim v'aketanim. This is a very important halacha. Says the Ramah, when you say halachma anya, and this is going to hold true as well for the rest of Magid, for the rest of the Haggadah, you should say it b'lashon shemevinim anoshim v'aketanim, in a language that the women and the children understand. Or translate and explain it to them. It's no use for them to just read it in a language that they don't know and they have no idea what's going on. You have to explain it to them. V'chein asari milundri kal ha'agada b'lashon laz, brings down the milundri would say the whole agada in laz, kedei she'yavinu anoshim v'aktanim, so that the women and the children should understand it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cotton samach beis. The Yarmar Balashon, you should say it in a language that the women and children understand. Ritzayna Loimar, what the Ramah wants to say here is, he's referring to Mei Ha-Lachma Ve'elech, from Ha-Lachma Anya and on. He doesn't mean that just Ha-Lachma Anya you should say in a language that the women and children understand. He means from Ha-Lachma Anya and on. To Hu Aschalas Haggadah. When he mentions halachma anya, He just means that that's the starting point. Don't think that what he meant was the paragraph of Holach Ma'anya you should say in a language that the women and children understand, or you should explain it to them. But from Manishtana and Avodah Mayinu and everything else, you could say in Gobbledygook that they don't know. No. From Holach Ma'anya, which is the starting point of the Amiras HaHaggadah, and on for the entire Haggadah, you should make sure to say it and explain it in a way that the women and children understand. And you fulfill by doing this the mitzvah saseh Masha Amar HaKosav that the pasuk writes v'higada tolavincha, that you should say it over and recite it to your children. Ayis katan samach dalid kidei sheyavinu hanashim, so that the women should understand. Shaharei gam nashim chayavos b'mitzvahs halayla. The women are also obligated to fulfill the mitzvahs of the Seder night. Uva amiras haggadah, and also the amiras haggadah, the saying of the haggadah. The women are obligated. The women are obligated in hearing and reciting and understanding the haggadah. The chanal b'siman tafayin base. If you're daled, like we said previously, avheim hayu ba'isay anes. The women were also redeemed from Mitzrayim. They were also involved. They were also the beneficiaries of all of the nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So they are also obligated in all the mitzvahs halayla, including the Haggadah. V'lachein, and therefore, achiv gam ala mishareses sheteshev eitz ala shulchan. The obligation also extends to a woman who might be, a Yiddish woman who might be there as serving help. Sheteshev eitz ala shulchan, who sits by the table, v'sishma kol ha'Haggadah. She should hear the entire Haggadah. V'im tzrichais lotzes lachutz lavashel. If the women have to go out to the kitchen to prepare, I'll call panim mechuyeves l'shmaya kiddush. I'll call panim. They definitely have to hear kiddush. Ukishiyagil Rabban Gamliel Amar Kol Shalayamar. And when they get to the section of the Haggadah, Rabban Gamliel Omer Kol Shalayamar. Anyone who doesn't say these three things by the Seder does not fulfill his obligation. Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Right? Rabban Gamliel says, if you don't say by the Seder, Pesach al Shema, why do we have a korban Pesach? Al Shepasach Hashem al Bata Yisrael, because the Rebbe Shalom skipped over our houses by Makas Becheres. And Matzah al Shema, why do we have Matzah? Because the Rebbe Shalom brought the Geula so quick that we didn't have time for our dough to become chametz. So, and Maror, why do we have Maror? As a remembrance of the bitterness of the Shibud. Anyone who doesn't say these things isn't Yosei Yidei Chavasai. That goes on the women also. Tichnais v'sishma ad lakish dias kaisheni. So certainly when we get up to that point in the Seder, any women that are there who may have had to step out to the kitchen, they must come in at that point and pay attention to the Haggadah from the point of Rabban Gamliel Omer until after the second kais. Sharei mishalei amar shleisha dvar malala lo yatsa. Because if they don't say these things, they're not yaitza. They don't fulfill their obligations. We're also knowing that we call them in to hear about the 10 makos. So that the women should also know all the miracles that the Rebbe Shalom did on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Continues the Shulchan Aruch. Let's go to the end of Sivav here. Va'az continues the Mechaber right after the words of the Ramah. After we say Holach Ma'anya, so now we're up to Manishtana. Says the Mechaber, Va'az after Holach Ma'anya, Yitzave lahasira me'al shulchan. We should instruct that the ka'ara should be removed from the table. Ulahanicham b'seif hashulchan. And it should be placed at the end of the table. Kilu kvar achlu, as if the Suda is over. In other words, again, what's on the ka'ara? We have the matzahs on the ka'ara. The matzahs are certainly tzarchei ha'suda. We need them for the Suda. We're going to wash for the Suda. We're going to eat matzah. So remove the ka'ara with the matzahs to the other side of the table as if the meal is over. Why? So that the children should see this and they should ask, why on earth? Says the Mishnah Berurah cut in Samachay. The ka'ara should be placed at the end of the table. If the table that you're sitting on is small, so moving it to the end of the table doesn't do much, remove the ka'ara totally from the table. Because if you only move it over 3 inches, there's nothing there for the child to observe and ask. When the child sees that you removed the ka'ara, he's going to ask what's going on. Why are you taking away the matzahs that we need to eat? And you'll say to them, oh, I have to take away the matzahs now because I can't use them now. You'll tell the children, because we can't eat now. Why? Because first we have to discuss Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because of Maril, the Maril writes, that no matzah should be placed on the table until we are ready for Shulchan Aruch, until we're ready for the Achilas Matzah and for the Suda. Thank you so much for joining me for this beautiful Torah learning. I hope you all enjoy it. The schus of Liman Torah should be Megan against Klal Yisrael. It should protect against Klal Yisrael. Rabban Shem should send Yeshuas to Refuas to all that need it. Rabban Shem should send Parnasa to everybody who needs Parnasa. Rabban Shem should send the Geula Shlema. Rabban Shem should send Mashiach. Like I said, there should be an urgency. We should all be asking for the Geula Shlema. We shouldn't be asking just for an end of coronavirus. We should be asking for an end to the Golus. We should be Zoicha next Pesach. We're sitting and we're learning about Pesach. We shouldn't wait for Pesach. We should have Shavuos. We should be Oila Regel. We should go be Oila Regel already on Shavuos. We should see the Nisim of the Beis Hamikdash. The Rosh should bring the Geula Shlema. Be well.